not come to Ghana and not sit down and interview this gentleman right here. We've actually interviewed by way of Zoom previously, but now we're having a sit-down conversation, and I'm telling you, you're going to want to watch every minute of this because we're going to unpack so much. So I'm talking to Kwabena Obeng Darko. And is there a title? What's your official title?
Obeng Darko. Kwabena Obeng Darko.
It's not doctor?
No, Kwabena Obeng Darko.
Not Reverend Doctor.
No.
Not Bishop. Nothing. No. Okay.
Obeng Darko.
Obeng Darko. So we're here, and again, we're going to have this conversation. It's much needed, and I firmly believe that when we begin to have discussions like this, it helps us to understand each other more, and that's how we bridge the gap. We'll discover that we have more in common than we have differences. Now, before we get this conversation started, is there anything off the table? Is there something that you don't want me to talk about?
No, not at all.
Okay, so you're ready for this?
Yes, sir.
All right, I know he is. I know, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to make sure that he was here. All right, I have traveled extensively throughout the continent.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of conversations, but you are one of very few who are willing to have open, honest conversations about what's going on and then have tangible solutions. Because I hear some people who complain, but they don't necessarily have the solutions in place. And I know that you've written several books. We'll talk about your books. You're an entrepreneur. You have retail establishments here in the greater Accra area. We'll talk about that also. But for me, I've worked in the community for more than 25 years in the Washington D.C. metropolitan area in America. And I just believe in offering solutions. You know, if I see a problem, I'm not going to complain. I'm going to offer a solution. So what are some things or some challenges that you've seen here in Ghana in particular? And then we'll talk about some of the solutions.
All right. Jay, thank you very much. And it's an honor to meet you again.
Yes, in person.
We met in the spirit. And
now we're in the physical.
Yeah, physical. And thank you for what you're doing. We learn a lot from your videos, your teachings. And I must say, if there are topics that I want to learn, I look up to you.
Oh, wow.
And I take a lot of lessons.
Well, thank you.
You can't change a man's life until you change what he thinks about. And you can also control people about what you let them know. And as Africans, I mean, that's a battle that we are up to, and we've been up to for the last 500 years.
And that's continent-wide.
Yes, continent. And even beyond the continent, it's the same.
Yes.
You know, so the education is very key. And you should not take it lightly, what you are, resolving in the minds of people. A person can take his life just based on a particular thought. And a person can be free by the same thought. You know, nothing is seen without the word. You know, if you want to go a Christian, knowledge is key. Knowledge is light. Knowledge can liberate a man. You know, it can make a prisoner feel like he's free.
Oh, wow.
The way he processes the knowledge that comes to you. So yes.
So is that one of the challenges that you've seen as far as how people think?
Yes, our education is a trouble.
So what's the trouble about the education?
You know, Ghana had independence in 1957. If you look at when they sat down to chop Africa into pieces, that was just about 100 years from the time that we had independence. We knew how we were as a people. You know, the other day I was talking to an elderly woman, and she said that their time, before there was this kind of school, if you were a man that you were going to marry, they had a system that they train you.
Really?
You had to have the way you make income, and the woman would have to know how to cook, how to take care of the home. Now, when they introduced this kind of education, that one that we knew was left. You know, so the African, like me, you go to school. The content that you're given in the school is based on European culture.
So this is
very large extent.
This is the European educational
That's
system,
right.
to kind of help everybody understand that that's what, when you refer to this system, when they chopped everything up in the Berlin Conference in 1885, and a lot of people don't know that the countries in Africa, the borders of the countries, were basically European constructs.
Yeah, they were created. Ghana's borders were, were created by who? By the Europeans.
Right, by the British, right?
Yeah. And whenever you talk about this, history is the foundation of education. So if you don't know history, It does not matter whether you're a professor, engineer, doctor, teacher, officer, whatever. You could be a president of a country. If the history is not right, whatever education you've been given is wrong. And it could be seen by the results. You know, you can debate it, but let's look at the results. You can know a good fruit or a good tree.
But fruit, but that it bears.
That's right. And so you see a lot of young Africans complaining about what is happening on the continent. We are not happy with the results. So let's look at what is causing this. And I'm saying that the education is part of it.
Well, they will say, well, it's the African governments.
Yes, of course. They are scapegoats.
Okay. So the government is a scapegoat.
Yes, it is a scapegoat.
Explain that.
Okay. So the other day I was talking to somebody and he was talking about Chinese education. And he said that in the Chinese education, he stayed in China, they train you, the Chinese, that no other people are better than you. And your history goes beyond 5,000 years.
Okay.
And then I asked him, how about this Einstein and Newton? And I said, no, they tell them that these are just individuals who discovered something, but they are not the standard. And that you can go any standard that you want. That's the Chinese. And if you're Chinese, look at the product that you can bring. Now, when I went to school, the standard was I did engineering, first degree, I did engineering, second degree.
Okay.
So systems engineering, second degree. If you go to engineering school, all the heroes in the books are Europeans.
Really?
And they are the standard. You actually bring everything you know against the formula. I was not taught that this is just one individual and you can refute or refuse or accept whatever he has done. They give us, especially Americans, they give us all the creation of America. And then when it comes to us as Africans, they give us all. And most Africans, the ones who are product of this kind of education, will debate this all the time. And then we are very much comfortable trying to accuse ourselves. The first one is what? Is corruption. Our leaders are corrupt.
Right.
They don't think about the people. Without knowing that if you want to develop a people, the training of the leader is key. And the training that you give to the people are key. The identity that the people have of themselves is key. And you cannot give them proper identity when you don't constructively train them. You know, so if there's no structure that is training these people, then once in a while they will win. But a lot of the times they will fail. And that's what we have. So look at education. It's there. I mean, nobody should tell us that it's not European. It's European.
It's a European.
Because there were systems that we knew and we had that worked for thousands of years. But once the Europeans said that, okay, we came here, you're a colony, we give you independence. When Kwame Nkrumah took that, what kind of education did Nkrumah give us? What kind of government structure did Nkrumah have? Did he have even the right to say that we will not go for party politics and democracy? Some people compare us to, say, Arabs. Do they practice the same thing that we practice? If you have to change all these guys every 4 years, what kind of money do you have? They say that the Americans practice democracy, but the Americans went everywhere for almost 300 years. They had a lot of people who worked for them for free for years, mainly from the Africans. You look at the Europeans as well. If you were to calculate the tons of gold that they stole from the locals, that is a backbone of the economy. Now, how do you compare such economy and the systems that you run this government with a country like Ghana or Nigeria? Because we don't have these resources. You have not gone to anywhere to take people's resources. And you say that run this kind of democracy, run this kind of education, run this kind of head structure, run this kind of development.
Even in Tanzania, when you look at what they're doing with the Maasai and moving them off of indigenous lands,
that's right,
so they can make more way for more tourism and more things that people can. So they're even evicting to this day, still evicting the indigenous and altering.
Because the guys who are leading this, who educated them?
Of course.
And so whatever we see around, like where we are now, whatever they know is what they put.
Well, I'll never forget when I heard the president of Sierra Leone, and he said he wanted Sierra Leone to be the Athens of West Africa. And I was like, well, why Athens? Why can't it be the
Kemet?
The Kemet, or just be the Sierra Leone of West Africa?
That's right.
Which is brilliant within and of itself. Why do they have to? Why is a European?
Why the European are the standard?
Why the idolization of European standards so important? Now, here's a question I have for you, and we'll circle back to some of this. This is a question I wonder: Do in Ghana, and Ghana is a country out of 54, 55 within Africa. So Africa is not like one big country; it's a big landmass. But because of what happened with the Berlin Conference and the carving out of the borders, they now have different countries based upon, in many cases, these European systems. But in Ghana, do Ghanaians idolize white people?
A lot.
Okay.
A lot. I was born a Catholic. My mother took me
Okay.
to Catholic church, and if they had to baptize you, they would have to give you another name, not
Really?
my name, Kwabna.
Really?
Yes,
So they make you change your name into,
to another name. If you had to,
what kind of name would it be?
It could be maybe they say the Bible name, so maybe John.
No,
So that's why you
Joseph,
can see a lot
Daniel,
of John.
Isaiah.
That's right.
Okay.
And they say that that's a Christian name. So my name Kwabna, you would not the time that I knew. If it's changed, maybe. Then you go to church, you see the color of Jesus is white. The angels are white, Mary is white. And then they show you the devil, and it's black. Now, this is somebody. Compare the same thing to a Chinese boy who's not going to school to see his name change. Or even his language. If I'm speaking P, I go to school, then I have to speak what? English. They would have to teach me in English. So, which means that everything that I knew before I went to school, or if my grandmother knew something I could not speak P, all that wisdom I will not have access to. Okay, so you have to deal with language, which is basically your identity,
Yes.
your name, which they
It's your
deal with this,
identity, yes.
and then the God that they present to you is not like you. So when the African grows, what else do you expect? The European is God.
But you know, that's the similarity that we have, because like my name is as European as it gets. Jay.
Yeah.
That is Jay. It's not short for anything else. That's my name. That's the name my mother gave me. But I don't know anything else. I don't know any other culture. You know, I'm Black American, which is a hybrid of cultures
Yeah.
that have morphed into what we, you know, like an ethnic group, if you will. But when you're talking about this, it seems like what the intention was to strip the identity. So in order to extract what would be needed, whether it be the labor, the ingenuity, the intelligence, to continue to build whatever
They had.
was going on. I mean, because that's what I'm hearing in it. But a lot of people, because you mentioned Catholicism, and I find that Catholicism is rampant
Everywhere.
everywhere. South America, Africa, America, in Europe, wherever you want to go, it's rampant. But most people don't know the history, because the Pope of that particular institution just apologized to indigenous
yes.
people. So
The order that they had to give for
Right.
them to go and take the people.
yeah, it's like he just apologized for it, but yet there are people who still sit under this who look like me and you, and who would swear by it. Like you said, there would be people who would argue for it. And I guess I see that on so many different levels. There are people who will argue for the educational system. They'll say you're educated if you're educated by them, but you're uneducated if you do indigenous practices.
That's right. You're not.
There's you're uneducated. You're not, and I, in one sense, I'm all for all kinds of education. I'm not like monolithic with education, but when one dismisses their own brilliance for the exchanging of to be like someone else, wow! I mean, we do it in America the same way you talk about.
If you have wealth and I want to come for it, I would have to use gun.
Yes.
I would have to make you believe that whatever you have is nothing. And in order for me to do that, I would have to have you believe something.
So you got to get the mind first.
That's right. And that is what they have done. So look at the wealth of Africa now. It's in whose hands?
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, let's look at it. The companies that have all this gold, diamond, timber, the retail shops in our country, who owns them?
But everybody's independent.
That's a facade. That's not
Well,
true.
when I said it, they wanted to come for me. When I said I'm looking at it because I know what we deal with in America. I said, oh no, this is no independence, because you go to the Francophone countries, and France still controls the currency.
Yeah.
The people still speak French.
French, yeah.
Now, not that they don't speak their native languages also, but I've encountered melanated brown people in Francophone countries who've never been to France, but will say they're French.
Yep.
So those things, I'm looking at this just as a common sense. I'm just looking with my own two eyes saying, you're not French. first and foremost. You know,
They're French.
But in their mind, they're French, so they have embraced
Yep.
that culture, that mentality, all of that. Even this is something I noticed in Francophone countries I didn't see in Anglophone countries. The smoking of cigarettes.
Okay, they smoke a lot.
So in the Francophone countries, I would see everybody, the black people, brown people, going for it. I mean, now, not that they don't do that in Anglophone countries, but I saw it as a part of the cultural norm, which is a cultural norm that you see in France for many people. So I guess when you say it, I'm just making sure that I'm not missing it, because I would see these things, but then when I hear you repeat them, I'm like, okay.
I had to study.
Okay.
And there's something about this kind of education that you have been given in school.
So who do they fight for?
They don't fight for the ordinary citizen. They fight for the people or the cultures that look like those who trained them. You know, yes, I mean, just look at it. Ask any young man, who do you think the officials of the country fight for? Who do they protect?
But they're independent, though.
Yes, they will say that's something that looks like. If you're independent, then you must be in charge of your finances. You must be in charge of the wealth that you have as a people. You must be in charge of your education. You must be in charge even of your religion. Your young men must have hope in your country. But if you do any study now, maybe 70, 80, 90% of the young men would rather take American visa and move out of here than to live here. Are the people hopeful? Do they believe that they can be great in where they are? Do they believe that?
I just had that conversation in the previous interview with Mavis, and I was at an establishment, and the guy was like basically the security, and he was like, "Hey, I want to trade places with you.
Yeah.
And you stay here in Ghana,
And I'll go to
America."
Yes.
And I was like, "Wow!" I was like, he couldn't even see what he has in front of him. He was, and then when I went to renew my passport here in Ghana, and the line for the U.S. visa.
Yes.
I could not believe. I was like, wow. But then here's the argument people in America would have. Well, America's so great. America's great because everybody wants to come here. So few people are leaving. And I'm thinking to myself how ignorant of a statement that is. I mean, the sheer ignorance of it without even understanding what America was founded and built on.
That's right.
What it stole.
Yeah.
And perhaps some of these people are coming to reclaim what was stolen. Because when you think about it, it's like, okay, yeah, you have all of this so-called development, all these different things, but they're not coming because it's great. It's because America and other players stole the resources from the places they're running from.
If that is the psyche, then fine.
That's
But
the
if
psyche.
the psyche is for you to think that you have nothing in Ghana, nothing in Nigeria, you don't see your future here, so you must run away, then we have to question that again. Because almost everybody else wants to come here, and they come here to build businesses.
Come to Ghana.
Yes.
Yeah.
Look at the Chinese here. He comes with Chalewate.
That's what I'm
He has
saying.
nothing in his pocket. Next minute, he owns a lot of companies.
But that's what I'm
He's
saying.
He's employing a lot of people.
But think about
It
that.
matters what the people know. It matters
The
what the
knowledge
people
base.
have been conditioned with. And I'm saying that we all have to re-educate ourselves.
How does someone re-educate themselves? Because that's not easy. At first, I'm sure you have to have a desire to want to educate yourself.
Okay, I travel. I've been to some few places.
Okay.
I didn't like it. And when you say it, the young men will say that you don't, you're lying. But I said, no, it's not, I'm lying. I desire that I should have freedom. And I should do something that I think this one life that I have, I'll be proud of. And I did not just want to work for money, but I wanted to do something with.
Yes.
And it did not just start. I started to read a lot on finance, on business, on history. And so I had a certain understanding of the world and what I could become. So a lot of our people would go to some of these countries, and basically the reason is to work for money.
Got it.
And I saw that if you really want to be rich, it's not just the paycheck.
Yes.
It's something beyond money. The most wealthy in this world don't just work for salary.
Yeah.
There's the way they understand money, and there's the way they understand the world, and there's the way they understand how to pick an idea and turn it into economic value.
And then on top of that, it may even be what they perceive as wealth. Because sometimes the wealthiest people aren't even pursuing the money.
That's right.
Sometimes they're just pursuing whatever. I'll give you a good example. Like for me, and I'm not the wealthiest person or anything like that, but meaning that what I used to perceive as wealth before has changed as I started traveling.
Okay.
So now my wealth comes by way of experiences. But what I now do is generate income so that I can have the experiences. And so that leads to what some would perceive as wealth.
Okay.
So it's that type of thing that, again, a lot people are chasing money. Then it seems like they could be, just chasing on that kind of gerbil wheel, hamster wheel. But I mean, you raise a very valid point with that. As people are educating themselves or re-educating themselves, how do we reach people on the continent of Africa? And I'm using it continent-wide to help them see what's really going on. Because I've had people argue me down. I was in Kenya and I was doing an interview, and the people thought that I was giving the British credit for everything, and I wasn't giving the British credit for everything. They were like, well, the British, we ran the British out of here, the British left, the British are gone. And I'm looking around and say, the British, I can just look and see.
They are present.
They are very present. They are lockstep in. So what I saw now, there were others who came in and said, nah, we see the British here. We know they're here. And not just the British, but the Chinese and the Americans and all these other players, we know they're here. So there were those Kenyans who saw it. But then there was another block of Kenyans who were under this denial. And I see it in Ghana too. Yeah. Everywhere I go, it's in America. Yeah. You try to tell black folks, this is what's going on. Oh, no. I can't say, no. So it's not just something pertaining to Kenya, it's just pertaining to how people have been trained in a particular mindset. How do we break through that for those who are reachable? Because there's some people that just aren't reachable. They're just going to be what they're going to be. But for those who are reachable, how do we break through that wall of miseducation? Okay,
I would say the internet is a game changer.
Okay.
It's a game changer, whether it's text, video, or audio.
Okay.
Like, there were things that I watched on your channel that I would never have had maybe 30 years ago or 20 years ago. So the internet is a wealth of knowledge. You can easily Google the history of Africa, educate yourself, and see the value.
How does someone know what's accurate history? Because there's so much content. I mean, there are black people in America saying they aren't African, and you look at them, they look like they're straight from Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa. Oh no, I'm not African. So you have that crowd. So how does someone not pick up that? How does someone decipher this is accurate information?
Actually, anything against the Europeans and what they have said on Africa.
Okay.
Anything opposite,
anything opposite.
Anything that they have said on us, whether it's accurate or not, because there's a lot of junk that we have consumed.
Yes.
So yes. It will not matter to me.
Got it.
Even if it's junk and it's telling me that get up, do something, you're worth something.
Yes.
You're worth.
Yes.
You can do it. You come from a strong heritage.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be accurate because there's a lot of lies that we have told.
There's a whole lot of lies
that we have consumed that we didn't challenge.
And then we tell ourselves too.
And so when you see it, you see it.
Okay.
It's like a puzzle. Once you start the right one.
Yeah. It's like One Piece.
Something. Once you start to know, to follow, you have something within you as a human being that will speak to you that this one is right. If you so desire.
Right.
And you can see the trend, the patterns to say that. If somebody is trying to tell you all the time that you are nothing, you're worth nothing, and you want to believe that, but then you reach something that says that no, you come from a great heritage, and you say that no, it's not true. We have to be the ones that we have to believe. Africa is always telling you, blame yourself. We are the victims. We have to take charge. Say that you cannot take charge. One particular example is, the Africans like pulling themselves down.
Okay.
Have you ever heard it?
I hear it in America all the time. About us.
And they said it's the crab.
Yes.
Some people will even go to the extent of saying the black crab.
Yes.
Put them in a bucket.
Yes.
And they will start to put themselves down.
I've heard
the question is that what are they doing in the bucket? Naturally, the crab does not have to be in a bucket.
But that's what they tell us in America. They say, all them Africans sold us into slavery. Yes. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, first of all, like, somebody had to buy them. If that's the narrative, if someone was sold, who bought?
That's right.
And do they get a pass too? Do they get off the hook? So they're like, I don't want to go to Africa because them Africans sold us into slavery. And I'm saying, but yet you go to Europe with no question. You'll go to Paris and take a picture in front of the Eiffel Tower.
Africans who sold you.
But you won't even go to Africa. But the same people who bought. Yeah. But you'll want to stay in a place, in a land, in a country of people who bought you, abused you, intentionally went down and stripped everything from you, but you'll hold an affection for them. That's the same thing that I've seen on the continent. Yeah, right.
It's conditioning. They had to hide a lot of the evidences. Even if you say that the Africans sold them, did we build a ship that came here?
Well, that's it.
Did we come up with all the chains?
Yeah.
There were tribes that were powerful, and there were tribes that were not so much powerful.
Yeah.
If the Africans sold them, it was trade, isn't it? So where is the money in Africa? You said that these people sold a lot of people over these years. No problem. So they sold millions.
Yeah, millions.
The Africans must be rich. Then on the other hand, you tell the Africans that they are poor. I'm trying to look for it. So if they really sold the people and you pay them fairly, then they should not be poor.
Well, fairly. Now that leads to another topic then, because they've never done anything fairly. I mean, if we look at the natural resources, we can look at natural resources. Human resources are natural resources. Gold is a natural resource. Rubber, bauxite, uranium, copper, oil. To this day, they still don't pay.
Don't pay the fair value.
Because if they paid Africa, the continent, the worth of the natural resources, then Africa would be looking like, you're right.
We'll be like them.
Yes.
The kingdom that you say that is maybe big is the Ashanti Kingdom.
Okay.
It became strong in the middle of the 70s. But the Europeans had been here from 40s.
Right.
Over 200 years. Who was selling them? They accuse the Ashantis of selling.
Yeah,
At one point were they that powerful?
That's the thing, though. It's
See?
Yeah.
So this was an invasion. We need to study it. I'm not saying that the Africans should be left.
Right. Not saying that things didn't happen. Right.
The accusation is no more than 10%.
And I think on many levels, most people where I come from, they don't understand the complexity of Africa ethnic conflicts that were just naturally occurring. They don't understand that. So they kind of take it, they look at it through the context of a Black American mind. My brother, my sister, black, white.
So they thought that we were relating.
Right. And they thought on skin color and relating as brothers and sisters. So for us, they don't even realize that the whole black-white thing is a European construct. There was a person who left a comment on a video on my channel, and they talked about how Africans, always trying to identify as something else. They want to identify as Hebrew or want to identify as, they went down this whole thing, and then they said the black race. And they didn't realize within that whole comment that when they said the black race, that was just another identifier that the Europeans had given. As they were complaining about us trying to take on all these European identities, they identified themselves as with a European identity marker, and so that's what I'm saying. For many of us, the confusion is so deep. But I think with these types of conversations, what happens is that we're forced to pause for a second, because in America, we're fighting for equal rights and to get rid of racism. And a lot of times what these systems do is they will manipulate conflicts as a distraction. They'll say, we want you to be focused on this so we can continue to still take the resources. Just like what they do here on the continent. They'll manipulate an ethnic conflict between two rival ethnic groups, fund one with the arms, fund the other with the arms. They're fighting each other. Meanwhile, they're digging a mine, extracting everything. They got a drill going in the ground, getting more oil. They're now luring people away from the continent, the so-called best and the brightest, luring them away with these lotteries and all this other kind of stuff, so they never want to return. And it's like they just refine this thing. It's like if you go to early chapters in a book, and you see how they did it maybe 300-400 years ago, and then as it progresses, we've refined this a little bit better, and we'll make it where the people will now sabotage themselves. We've conditioned them, to your point, we've conditioned them to the point where they really don't even want to be bothered with their original culture and don't even want to connect with it. Now, do you see it on that level here in Ghana?
Yes, it's there. Ask the gentleman here. I'll tell you. And a lot of them are not even aware. If you go to school and they're teaching you history, where they really pay attention to is our interaction with the European and when they came. As if we were not a people.
As if you were not.
We never existed.
Wow.
Our civilization, even the history teacher is saying the same thing. I think there's a difference between African consciousness and understanding African culture. A lot of Africans may be African, may be conscious, may be cultural. But in terms of the data to defute or refute what the Europeans and the errors that they have promulgated, very few Africans have that. And it has to be a history that goes beyond thousands of years before they came. If you don't study that, then you see you have the kente, you beat the drum,
right,
and you have the African name, but you still give the contract to the Chinese. You still give the intelligence to the European, and you still come back and condemn your people. And that's why you can still see a chief. He dressed in all those, and he still be looking for some European small boy to come and sink borehole for them, because the consciousness goes beyond the culture. So a lot of us, the culture is what we are aware, but the consciousness that will make you wake up to say that no, we are human beings. We deserve better. We deserve better, and we have to fight for ourselves. And we must be the ones in charge of our economy. And if someone has to come in, no problem. But when you come in, you should see a lot of our people worthy. That I don't see most Africans have.
Wow.
Because of the words of history. And that's what the Chinese are saying, that our history is beyond 5,000. So don't tell us just the 50 years ago that we had independence. That is just an interjection from some people. You cannot define yourself that way and still think that you will develop. And that's abetting. You cannot let all your education center on that. The way you practice business center on that. The way you practice your laws center on that. The way you even practice your health center on that. The way you marry center on that. And then you're asking questions, why are you not developing? You cannot develop because you're not European. So the culture must evolve. You educate the people by the culture that they have. And you must, as they change in population, technology, as they get more information, you build on that. The mango seed cannot be orange. When we're trying to say change the mango seed into orange, and we're asking why is it not doing it?
And it creates frustration.
All great people, all great civilizations are built on the culture, on the identity.
And if you strip the identity
and you try to say that, yeah, let me put this jacket on you.
Yes.
It won't work. And obviously it's not working.
And that's the hybrid of European imperialism.
Yes. And wherever they went, they introduced their religion, they introduced their laws. Look at them well.
But
I find it very difficult.
But it's so entrenched in America, and it's so entrenched in Africa, especially among brown people. When you talk about it, the introduction of the religion, and this is something that I've asked people, and I spent 25 years in that world. It's in all of my interviews. I talk about it. But as I began to learn more about the history that they withheld, I started asking questions that theologians couldn't answer, Black historians couldn't answer, because they had not traveled extensively enough. They've just read a few books here and there, but yet they were experts. Yet they were deemed to be experts. They have a couple letters behind their names. And then when I started traveling and seeing that the story is very different than anything that they're teaching us on those, especially when they have systems in place to teach us, brown people. Those systems would be void of information that would be vital
to you,
for us to know, to begin the identity process. And so as I started traveling and I could start seeing, it's like there was a empowerment that came over to say, wait a minute, I'm not going to let these people educate me. I had to tear down.
That's right.
Everything I learned, and now rebuilding it. But then I'm looking at people they're looking at me like I'm crazy.
Yeah.
I'm looking at them like, you just don't know. You just don't know. But to hear you say this, and I think this is a part that why I love having these conversations with you, is because when people are able to get that identity piece under control and not be doing it from a desperation standpoint or anything, just saying, I just want to understand a little bit more about me, but then also the history, the broader historical context. It just does something that's so liberating. And that's what I want for more people in the African diaspora, whether it be here on the continent or other places. When the internet is another resource, but what should, say, a young person who's coming out there, been educated in this system, They've gone to university. They can't find the job that was supposedly promised. What does that person do at this point?
Okay, so I use myself as an example.
All right.
We've been able to build, retail shops. We started with our own resources,
Okay.
which is virtually zero.
Oh, I was going to ask you where you get the resources from. That's why I was like, "Is it the resources?" I said, "Oh, let me find out where these resources from."
We've been able to build our own real estate development company. We did a lot of construction work, engineering works. From the fact that we had a conviction that there was no way to make it that year. And so we said that this is where we want to be successful. It's either it works or it doesn't work.
Right.
But we closed that mind that I should move to Togo, or I should move to America, or I should move to Canada. We said that this is where it is.
Okay, so to move to Togo, you got to throw whatever. I didn't see Togo coming. I was like, move to Togo. What Togo got going on? Okay.
We wanted to be successful in Ghana.
Okay.
And which means that we were not looking for visa. We were not looking at all the negativity. Because it's very difficult for you to be successful anywhere that you don't believe in, and anywhere that the pessimism is so high.
Yeah.
And wherever you see pessimism and negativity through the roof, it means that the people are not identified. So one of the things that you see, that the moment you start to re-educate yourself, you see that you start to have confidence.
Okay.
Confidence is what you need to create the future that you want. The trust in yourself and in your people.
How do you develop the confidence though? Because someone
It
can
comes
hear.
from the identity.
Oh, okay.
It comes from just as you bring people here, and they come to Ghana after a week, they are different people.
They are.
And I've seen a lot of them break down.
Yeah.
It's a healing process.
Yes.
Why did it happen? It's something that is working within them that you may not even be able to explain. So it's the same thing. Once you get the data to say that I'm worth it, I'm somebody, that one, it starts to work.
So how do we get that to the people? How do we get that information?
Question everything that they have taught you in school. Everything that the Europeans have taught you. And stop comparing Ghana to America. It's a different world.
Very different world.
Different structures.
Different structures.
I don't know how many people in America will be able to buy their own houses if they didn't have credit.
Oh, it wouldn't happen.
Or how many of them would be able to go to school if they didn't have loans?
That's right.
And how many of them would be able to build businesses if they didn't have all these venture people?
Yeah.
And what is the interest rate there? Here, if you want to start a business, that is not the approach that you use.
Right. So you're not going to take out a bunch of loans.
Don't use the MBA. A lot of your customers will not have credit card. They have money that they have worked for that they have to use to pay. So you really have to shut down, so to say. If you want to pick some principles, yeah, of course, there are human beings, there will be some common principles. But a lot of the things that will work, you have to say that I'm going to do opposite what these people do.
So it's two different systems and two different cultures.
Yes.
So when you, because America is a debt culture, we are encouraged to leverage.
Yeah.
And that is the term we use is called using other people's money, which can work, and it could lead to rapid wealth growth, depending on if you understand how to do it. But you can also do things like that here. Like if you know, I'll give you a good example. If you look at what the exchange rate is for the US dollar to the Ghanaian cedi right now, I think it's like 8.4, which is like, I know people are like, what is going on? But let's say, for example, someone coming from America, you have $10,000 and you convert that. Now you have 84,000 Ghana cedis. Now at that point, because of the exchange rate, and if you work on the local system, you could now expand. There are a lot of things you can do. I'm just saying that from the perspective of where I come from in America. But when you talk about, basically it was like all or nothing here in Ghana. Understanding that what you need to have a cash system, and don't count on that credit card working, being in this Ghanaian system. It's like you understood it and mastered it, and you were determined to do it because you had the confidence to own who you are.
Yes.
And to say, I'm going to make it work in a place, because I see and I hear so many people, young people, it's almost kind of like the white saviors thing. I got to get to America because that's where that's where the development. They say development, but that's European development. That's white development. When there's